Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have transformational conversations to transform your life and your business. And I am so honored to have our guest, Susan Morrice, with us today. A good friend of mine had told me, he said, why be a firecracker when you can be a stick of dynamite? And that, I cannot tell you, describes this woman who's coming on, okay? So listen up. I'm going to share just a little bit about her. She is the co-founder and chairperson of Belize Natural Energy. She earned her degree in natural sciences from Trinity College in Dublin, specializing in geology. And, her business, Belize Natural Energy, is a holistic business model at its core. And against all odds, I mean, just the story is just absolutely phenomenal. This model was the vital difference that enabled Susan and her late business partner, Mike Usher, to find the first oil in Belize in 2005. She has won many, many awards, including the Global GetEnergy Award for empowering women of Belize, beating 43 other countries. And she's consistently the number one revenue generator in Belize and has inspired world leaders, resulting in major trade treaty being signed with the United Arab Emirates, and awarded the Norman Foster Award, Explorer Award, and the Presidential Award for Exemplary Service by the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, listen up. I mean, just quite the gem that we have on our show today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Teri.
So I want to just dive in because, it's so interesting to me that we really connected. And her story is actually in this children's book. It was highlighted in the book, The Magic in You, and it's written by Emma Morey. And I am telling you, it is such an incredible, when I read this to my daughter, I was like, I knew how the outcome of it, the story ends. So I'm like crying even before we get there. And my daughter's like, why are you crying? It's not this sad. It's not that sad. I'm like, but it's going to get sad. But it was just a beautiful book. And I think we connected because my book is called Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. And so it was beautiful that we could connect and relate to this. But so tell us about this journey, because I'm telling you, you went against all odds in little ways. So for those that don't know the story, share a little bit of that with us.
Well, I suppose in a nutshell, I had been invited to Belize, about 35 years ago, by Sir Ian Rankin. And not only did I believe there was oil there, but I fell in love with the people. And I don't know how many people fall in love with a whole country full of people, but I did. And although there were 50 dry holes and all the majors said, look, there's no oil, Susan. And by the way, we think you're going to ruin your career if you keep going on about this. Because it let's just say it looked impossible. However, I knew in my gut, and Mike Usher, a Belizean friend, soulmate, knew also that we could make a difference. And we just, I know, I bet everybody knows when you feel it. But we tried for about 15 years. All the conventional things like shooting seismic and doing all of those things, but nothing worked. And we thought, oh my God, they're right. We're not going to do this. And our fear, our doubt came in and held us back. And at the same time, a famous oil man said, oil is found in the minds of men. And I said, hey, what about the woman? But more importantly, what about the mind? I'd learned about the earth, but never in education, at school, university, etc., had I learned about really what makes someone go for it. What makes someone fearless? What makes someone happy and successful? And I wanted to know what was that missing link in education.
Yeah.
And so I researched for about maybe 4 years, globally and back through time. You know, for instance, 2000 years ago, Socrates said, know thyself. But
Yeah.
what have we been doing? Have we been really diving deeply into those gems within us? Or have we been too preoccupied by, let's just say, the matrix material world? And
Yeah.
I'd say that's one of the silver linings in this shut-in time period, is that people have taken more time to reflect, to go inwards, to say, what is my path and what
Yeah.
is life really about? So I went, let's say, before the herd in a way. And it was 18 years ago. I went to a course called Educo, which is Educo. And it's from the Latin word education, but to draw out the gems from within.
Yeah.
And the course was absolutely intense and brilliant. And as soon as Mike and I had finished it, we realized we had the tiger, we had the answer by the tail. We
I love
went to
it.
Belize, formed Belize Natural Energy. Nobody, all the other oil companies wouldn't join us because it costs a couple of million to drill a well.
Yeah.
We went back to Ireland, 76 little Irish investors who had never invested in anything, let alone a wildcat in the jungles of Belize. But they came with us, and suddenly Mike died. The sad bit of the story that we're not really meant to tell, but
Yeah.
he died, and I was more determined to go on in his name for Belize.
Mm.
I named the well after him, the Mike Usher #1, and we started to drill. And on the 24th of June 2005, not only did we hit the first oil, but it's the best oil in the world. So light, it still goes into the generators without refining. And then
Wow.
suddenly we realized, I especially realized deep in my soul, that Mike had died on the exact day 1 year before. And
Yeah.
his spirit, his everythingness was with us and has been with us ever since, in winning all the awards and being a beacon for the rest of the world as to how to align with that energy, that life's force within oneself, and be the beacon and share it with everybody. And that was the transformation of Belize and the joining of the United Arab Emirates with us, as you said.
Just absolutely profound and beautiful. And I love how we can tie like in a lot of ways, spirituality, right? And that inner knowing with any industry, right? And I love how you talk about mindsets was the game changer because that's what I talk about. Like that's who I coach. Like that's who I work with is, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I truly believe that if we don't have it here in our mindset, that we can create it and become, like you said, fearless and just know and trust in that deeper knowing within us. It is so much harder. It's not to say it's impossible. It's just harder.
You're
So
exactly
that,
right.
right? Like,
Too much effort. It's whereas
yes,
the other way, the connected way, the alignment way, is
yes,
to go with the flow of life. It's
yes.
beautifully said, Terry.
It's absolutely beautiful, and I love I've heard you in some other interviews talking about this alignment, and I love the fact that you are in front of I mean, talk about what an impact that you've been having, not only just from your career, but now as you're speaking all across you just was speaking in Africa, like,
Mhm.
the message that you're continuing to hold and speak on is just again that trusting and knowing within, and it's so beautiful to see other people spreading light in other industries, right? And you think about, I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes that we have around the oil industries, let's be real. But I love the fact that you're speaking this other truth into that industry.
You know, you just reminded me of a key point, because there's a divide or a debate about fossil versus green, renewable, etc. But the common denominator and the way that we are going to pull out together and be at one with each other, and that's the movement and abundance for each other in harmony with the environment is to actually connect with this energy. So this energy is the real energy business, and we're all in it. We're all in the energy business.
That is absolutely beautiful, because you're right. We all have this. I mean, we're just these amazing beings, and we have energy flowing through us and to us all the time. It never shuts off, right? So it's absolutely breathtaking for you, for me to hear you say that and speak of that. It's just absolutely amazing. So let me ask you this. There was a point, and maybe I don't know if you can articulate this, because I know it's so much of it is like this deeper work that we do, and it's this internal process, and it's hard to sometimes put into words. But there was a time where, like you had talked about, like the stinking thinking, the fear, the doubt, the worry seeped in. And at what point, like what was there something that you did or said to yourself to start to pull yourself out of that? Because I think so often I call it getting stuck in the muck, where we get stuck in the muck, and whether that's a week, a month, a year, 6 years, whatever that might be. And there's this transition point, which I'm always fascinated with, this, like this little transition point where we find ourselves coming back up, and we're like, oh, and like everything comes alignment, and we feel great, and life is amazing, and our favorite song comes on, and we're like, whoa, right? And it's truly a gift, right? And I love the intersectional points of this, because I truly feel like that's where the magic lies, is how do we lose it, but how do we gain it? So talk about that little transfer, that little intersectional point for you
Yes.
that shifted it. I know that you got some outside support with the education piece, and we looked at your mindset, but there something.
Yes, probably would be a realization moment, to use that word. But remember, I'm a practical scientist and a businesswoman. So
Yeah.
I needed to know how it worked.
Yeah.
Like like your question. Can I share how it actually works?
Mhm.
Randomly, Gandhi, was totally amazing in India. Nelson Mandela in Africa, but those were random. There hasn't been an educational system for every single man, woman, and child in the world.
Yeah.
That's what's needed. It's understanding the mechanism of our mind, our conscious, which we're using, and it's only 5%
Yes.
of our total mind, and 95% is called the unconscious, and it is being bombarded by imprints, by watching countless hours of news. That's one thing I'd say. Turn off
Oh,
the news. Get a quick update every now and again,
yes.
but
Yes.
don't let it imprint and bring you down into stress.
Yes.
Because
And
that amazing part of us is being imprinted from the womb, actually. Now, once you understand how to clear your mind, open your mind, and actually imprint yourself that clarity and visionary capacity,
yeah.
once you know, and that's not faith or even belief, it's certainty that you
Yeah.
are at one with life's force, and
Yeah.
it's comes through you, and you are it. And that's the pivotal moment. And I did learn the mechanism and all of this on the Educo seminar.
Yeah.
But the important thing is to apply it, be so certain that you take action on those steps. And that's what Mike and I did in Belize, and now the whole country, from the chief of police to entrepreneurs deep in the Mayan forests, are coming forward and making a huge difference and getting global recognition. So
Yeah.
it's not just about discovering oil; it's actually about discovering the oil within.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And and I think that's where the abundance comes, right? Like that's where abundance really takes root, because there's no more lack. There's just that knowing. And I love the word that you said, certainty, right? When we can get to that place of certainty. And it's almost I hate to say this, but it's when we tap into that knowing, and we get that little glimpse, because usually it's just like, for me, it's like a little glimpse. And then it's like, oh, and then it's like, okay, I'm going with this. And it's
Yeah,
like it's buying into that certainty. And everyone else can look at me like I have three heads, and I'm like, I'm going with it. Like they're like, but you can't. And I'm like, watch me, like, I'm going to do this. And it's like that certainty that I'm holding within it to say, okay, I may fall flat on my face, but I'm just going for it. Like, I'm just absolutely going to go for it. Right.
Yes.
And then when you take that next step and that next step and things start to unfold for us,
Mhm.
and are shown to us when we're ready for it, when we're in a place of receiving it, right? And it is like this. I don't know this. I almost kind of visualize this. You're taking a step on this floating stone, and then when you take the step for that floating stone, another floating stone appears, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and then before you know it, you're there, right? So
That's a beautiful word picture, by the way, because quite often you don't know where the floating stone, the next move is coming.
right?
That trust, that certainty for the seeing it done.
Yeah,
Mike and I saw the people of Belize rejoicing in our mind before we
yeah,
even brought the rig in to drill. And so you see the end goal, you see the
yeah,
bank on the other side of the river,
yeah,
and you know with certainty those floating stones are taking you there.
yeah,
Now, that I was just like you, Teri, many years ago, but I wanted to know, is this replicable? Can we share this education, this
yeah.
knowing with
Mhm.
our children, with our families, our communities, countries, and the world? And that's what I researched, and that's where Educo came in, because it is actually the common denominator. It's for everybody, because everybody's got that
Yeah.
magic in you.
Yeah, well, and it's too and you know what's so interesting? When I was writing my book, I had researched the word magic because I was like, "Oh, you know what?" Because that came my title actually was supposed to be called something completely different, and my clients just kept saying, "I feel magical. I feel magical. I can create on demand." And so I was like, "Okay." So I started listening to it, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna." So then I was like, "Okay, it's be the magic of you, right?"
Mhm.
But when I researched the word magic, it's an old Parisian word, and it's the meaning to I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it. So to be able to have power,
Oh, I love it. I love
right?
it.
When you
I'm going
think
to write
about
that
that,
down.
so it's
Yeah.
to be able to have power. And I absolutely think when we think about the word magic, because I use magic a lot, but it's like, what does that really mean? And I think that is owning our own power,
That's it.
stepping into our own power, our own brilliance, our own destiny, if you will,
Mhm.
and just owning it, right? And it's waking it up. Like I was having this conversation the other day, and this lady was coming on to work with me, and she's like, I'm a little nervous because I feel like I have to like redo stuff. And I'm like, listen, you don't have to redo anything. Here's the gift. Like, I want you to know that every single thing when you were born in this pure positive little pod, let's call it, everything you came equipped with, everything that you needed for this journey and this path was injected, if you will, into you in this little pod. And you have every single thing that you need within you, right?
Yes.
And I think sometimes, and you're right, like my path wasn't. I share with people a lot of times my path was built on struggle, and I had to, my first years of life wasn't the easiest, but I'm so grateful for that journey because it brought me to where I'm at today. And I feel like I have a bigger calling and a bigger mission for that, right? So there's massive gratitude for that. But I feel like it's on our paths. We have to rediscover it because we forget it. We disconnect from it. That might not be the case for everybody, but for a lot of people that I've seen, disconnect from that knowing, disconnect from that power. And then when we really step into it, it is a game changer.
Well, I
Absolute game
think
changer.
it disconnects an interesting word, because I think it's a bit like a flame, and that we were born with that flame, that magic, that knowing.
Yeah.
Uh, but it gets covered over, and sometimes it gets so depressed that the person is depressed.
Yeah.
And what we really want to do is know and trust that if we're alive, we're part of life, and that's in us. And we just need to shed. We don't even need to know quite often
Yeah.
what those layers are that have been imprinted. We just need to find that love and that passion that is in all of us. It's
Yeah.
every single person who is capable of listening and watching
Yes.
us,
Yes.
feel it and see it and hear it and know that it's in them. And
Yeah.
that knowing, by the way, lifts it up, and the layers are shed off.
Yes.
And it's like a rocket ship. It leaves the those guards behind and just goes straight up
Yes,
our rocket ships.
yes. Yes. And even, and the two of us, I feel like we make this great pair because like we get each other, we feed off on each other's energy. But even the people that are listening to this, right? What I have found is that when we listen to the higher vibrations, right? We naturally, I think that internal piece goes, ooh, that feels yummy and juicy and I like it. Give me more of it. Right. So,
And
so
they can
people,
actually feel it. They can
yeah.
feel a feeling in their solar plexus and an energy rising and a heat. I've had people suddenly get hot. Like I'm getting hot
You're
right
giving other people hot flashes. I love it. My work is done here.
now.
So what is one thing, like if you had an opportunity to share a little nugget or tool or strategy for someone that's listening today to you, and what would that message be beyond what you've shared already?
Well, I've said it, but not as succinctly. And it is to actually really know yourself. Give yourself that time for reflection. And you do it by actually doing what you're doing. Such deep focus. It could be right now, listening to us, watching my hair move about the place, watching Teri smile and spontaneous laugh. In other words, absolutely diving deeply into that focus and attention. And that is the doorway to that spirit and that energy. And it is like liftoff. So, in a way, I'm saying, take the time. We've got the time. That's the silver lining.
Yeah.
And go into yourself and find that true nature and focus and teach your children, work with your kids
Yeah.
because they haven't been covered up so much. They are still those little shining lights. They can shine and brighten up your light. So we've all got the tools. It's just believing and taking action.
Yeah, last night my daughter came to me and we were getting ready to I'm getting ready to redo my studio and I'm buying some new furniture and so she comes in and she's like, "Mom," she's like, "Which one? Which one?" And I was like, "You know what? I'm really going towards this one, but this one's more modern, da da da." And she's like, "Well, let's muscle test it." And I say, "Okay." So I gave her the pay. We always do a blind muscle test so our brain's not getting it. But I love the fact that my daughter, 10 years old, is muscle testing, right? Like she's following the energy, right? And that's one of the tools that I teach people is like how to help you follow the energy so you can say yes to what means yes and no to what means no. She was very disappointed in the results because it was what I wanted, not what she wanted. And she's like, "I'm doing it again." And I was like, "Okay." So she kept the same answer. And I'm like, "Honey," I said, "just remember that this is from my office, not
Yes, not your bedroom.
for the contribution of my office, and so it was really funny. And so, but I love the fact that now she has some tools and I'm, just, and I don't think we're ever too young to learn it or ever too old to learn it.
No, in fact, I think the
I,
young are it.
yeah,
They
yeah,
they actually are it. We're born with that
yes, yes.
capacity,
So
that light, that energy. Yes.
it's easier to tap into, right? It's easier to
Much.
tap into. And when we can just foster that environment,
That's it.
right? And if you have grandchildren, foster that environment, have those
Mhm.
conversations, right? And so I mean, I think we can do our part and by us being and I think it's honestly when we boil it down and it just brings tears to my eyes to think about it. If we are being our authentic true selves, our powerful magical selves, if you will, we will naturally impact those around us and we don't have to really say anything because by our actions alone we are
Mhm.
giving other people permission to
Yeah.
play in that space, right? I think we instantly connected and it was such a delight to be at your home and have
Mhm.
we hours of conversation. But what it was like almost like two kindred spirits, like right? Like
Sure.
we could just play and there was no judgment. There was no you're better, like there was just like this open space of just like pure positive energy. And it's like, oh yes, we've arrived. Like, okay, we can connect, right? And it's like by just being yourself, right? And just being you in that place and space just gives automatically permission and unconsciously permission
Yes.
to other people, right? So I just think it's
Big time.
brilliant.
Can you imagine everyone in the world? Um, just growing up in that energy and knowing and not letting it get clouded and diluted, because those systems, we all know now, we don't want to go backwards to the old ways. They haven't worked. We actually want to follow the light, the energy, and be the new way.
Yeah.
And
And this is
that's
and
ah,
this is a time period, like, right? Like I've been talking about, like, COVID, when the backdrop of COVID is like, it's allowed us to dig up all the stuff. I come from a small town in Kansas, and like I always saw the plows going out to the fields, right? And so like when you think about plowing, like it all brings up, and it's bringing up stuff that was down below up to the surface, and now it can be brought up to the light, if you will. And so this has been a time and a process of like bringing all that old up. It's been looking at it, taking inventory of it. Do we need it? Do we not need it? I can't tell you how much I've been editing and purging my life. And it's like shedding those layers, like what you're talking about, like shedding those layers that says, how do I get myself lighter and lighter and lighter? What no longer serves me? And maybe it served us to a point, because I truly believe that we've been given things that has served us to a point. And then at some point it becomes, a hindrance. It holds us back versus allowing us to move forward. And so when we shed those layers
mhm,
and, release them for good,
yep,
it just allows us to rediscover, like you said, that oil within, that power within, the magic within, right?
mm.
And that is where, I think our greatest gift lies, right?
It is the treasure of the universe,
Mm,
and we have been burying it. And so
yeah,
now is the time, and I mean right now is the
yeah.
time to let go. Pooh.
Oh my goodness. For those that have been listening, if you're just not as jazzed as we are, I hope that when after you're listening to this, you're like, yes, like what is that one thing on my to-do list that I've been avoiding? Like, let's go do it, right?
Mhm.
Susan says, take care of it, right? So I thank you so much for being here and being just a beacon of light in the world, because when you are that amazing being, you are automatically giving permission to do to do their work and to be seen. And it's just absolutely infectious. And so thank you for being you. Thank you for being here on the show. So how do people connect with you, follow you, find you on the World Wide Web?
Probably the best one is my personal email, which is an easy one to remember. It's susan@susanmorrice.com. And the Morris is a funny one. It's Morrice.
Perfect.
Do email me, because I know what Teri and I are talking about in sharing, and the chemistry is happening. The dynamite is in everybody. Everybody has, yeah, they felt the firecrackers. Now let's go for the gusto, the full rocket ship.
That's right.
And don't hesitate to phone me. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. Link me on LinkedIn. Whatever way, reach out and share your story, and let's make it happen for everybody, because that's the world that we want.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to put all that contact information down in the show notes so go to her website. It's susanmorris.com to take a look. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Teri. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.